Hello everyone, my name is Nitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at EX08, and EX8 offers us lots of new and powerful tools in order to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be the Close deck, or more specifically Rocks and Minerals OTK. So as far as what Rocks and Minerals is trying to do, it's, well, an OTK deck. It's really weird in the fact that a lot of its lower end cards want to support more of like a control or defensive game plan, while the top end is going to be your game finisher, so when you go up into your big boss monster, you should ideally be trying to win the game. The deck is also trying to use and incorporate the new Fragment ability. The biggest weakness of the deck, however, is compared to other OTK-based decks, it is just a less efficient OTK deck in which it's not as consistent and it takes more setup in order to actually formulate its OTK. Then, because it is an OTK deck, it still has almost all the same weaknesses as most other OTK decks that we have currently in the game. On top of that, soft removal and ways to not delete Digimon are also going to be very strong against this deck to put it off of its overall game plan. So because of that, I don't necessarily think that this is going to be a highly competitive deck. It has potential, but right now I don't exactly think it's there, so I would probably just label it as a more casual deck that you'd want to build for fun and potentially a future investment when more support gets released later down the line. So with all that said and done, let's just dive right into the deck profile and see what we're working with. Starting off with the Digitamers, I'm only going to be running 4 copies of the brand new EX08 Tumblemon because there is actually no other egg that really works for this deck except for this card at this given moment. And Tumblemon is arguably one of the best cards in the entire deck for what the deck is trying to do because its inheritable ability states that when it's trashed from a mineral or rock traded Digimon's Digivolution source, then we get to gain a memory. It doesn't specify whose turn, so if the opponent's trying to strip them, then we could gain a memory and anti-tempo the opponent, or if we're trying to use it ourselves thanks to the Fragment ability or some of our other abilities that can trash inheritables, then we could use it to also gain a memory back, which is really good. Then when it comes to the level 3s, I'm just going to be keeping it simple and running basically all rocks and minerals. So I'm going to be running 4 copies of the brand new EX08 Gatsumon. So this is going to be a pretty interesting card that we're going to try to chip at the opponent's security with because he has an on delete ability where we're going to be discarding a rock or mineral traded card from our hand in order to draw 2, kind of acting like a decent draw engine while putting cards in our trash so that way we could use them for specific abilities to put them underneath our Digimon as inheritables later. Then the inheritable that he's giving is Blocker, so pretty simple, having some access at nice defensive plays for some of our Digimon if they're just going to be sitting and chilling on our field. And to go with the Gatsumon we're going to be playing, I'm going to be running 4 copies of the promo Gatsumon X Antibody. So this card isn't really that great if you actually stop and think about its abilities and how we use the card. We're mostly using this because it's an X Antibody Digimon that can Digivolve on top of Gatsumon while still being the same level, so we could try to put as many inheritable sources or have as many inheritable sources underneath our Digimon as we possibly can. So its blocker ability is whatever. The fact that this Digimon can't attack without X Antibody or Gatsumon underneath it is actually kind of bad. And then the other ability that triggers during the opponent's turn once per turn, when an attack target changes, one of our Digimon with blocker can unsuspend is pretty okay. We're not trying to be super defensive in the deck, but it's just an okay card. Then its inheritable ability is an all turns ability where our Digimon with blocker gets plus 1000 DP, which is not too bad at just making our Digimon a little bit stronger. But when it comes to the main level 3 Digimon that we actually want to try to utilize, that's going to go to the 4 copies of the EX08 Sunarizumon. So this card is also treated as a mineral type Digimon, so it just naturally works with the deck. Its on-play ability is just going to be your generic searcher for rocks and minerals or a liberator traded card, which is pretty par for the course at this point. Then its inheritable ability is actually really good, where when it's trashed out from our Digimon's Digivolution source, because it's going to be a rock or mineral traded Digimon, we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 4 or less, adding some extra control for us literally needing to do almost nothing but play to our deck's overall strengths. And then when it comes to the level 4s, I'm still just electing to stick inside of its archetype. So I'm going to be running 3 copies of Golemon from EX08 because this is actually a pretty decent card, having an on-play and on-delete ability to de-digivolve one of the opponent's Digimon. Just low-level, easy de-digivolution is really good because de-digivolve is one of the best soft forms of removal in the game currently. Then its inheritable ability is the same thing as Gatsumon's, just giving blocker, which is whatever. Then when it comes to some of the more interesting and highly synergistic cards, those are going to be going to the Landramons. So I'm going to be running 3 copies of the EX08 Landramon. So this is going to be what's allowing us to set up our Tamer if we have 1 or fewer Tamers on our field, which is pretty good. Making sure that we can always try to make our cards as efficient as possible is never a bad thing. Then it also has a nice inheritable ability that's the same thing as the Tsunorizumon, so it's just more low-level removal when it gets removed. Then the most important level 4 Digimon for the entire deck outside of the EX8 Landramon is going to be the brand new Promo Landramon. So this card is actually kind of insane with how good and important it is for the deck. So not only is its inheritable ability just de-digivolving when it gets removed from our Digimon's Digivolution source, then its abilities native to it, whether we're digivolving into it or moving it out of raising because it does trigger at the start of our main phase, allows us to discard 1 rocker mineral traded card from any of our Digimon's Digivolution source, this Digimon included. So we could start to try to trigger our Digimon's abilities when they're being removed from our Digimon's Digivolution source. And then we get to look at the top 3 cards of our deck. And then among them, we get to add a mineral or rock traded Digimon from them into our hand. Or place 1 such card to the bottom of our Digimon's Digivolution source and return the rest to the top or bottom of our deck. So it just gives us a lot of extra options, not only on how we could utilize our inheritables, but what cards that we could try to A, dig for, or B, put back into our inheritables to use. And then the rest of the cards, the fact that they could go either to the top or bottom, means that we could at least try to filter through our deck a little bit more efficiently. And then when it comes to the level 5s, I'm just going to be continuing this archetypal trend and running 4 copies of Proganomon. So this is a big keyword soup card just because he has Collision, Piercing, and Fragment 3, which is a really strong combination of abilities because forcing the opponent's Digimon to block us and then Piercing ensures that we're going to be dealing the damage is really nice, and Fragment 3 states that when this Digimon would be deleted, whether it's by battle or by card effect, doesn't matter, we get to trash any 3 Digivolution sources so it doesn't get deleted, which is an alternative way on how we're going to be removing our Digimon's inheritable sources. So it's just a really good combination of abilities on the top end, and then its inheritable is basically doing the exact same thing as the Promo Landramon, so it's just having more abilities that we want to see more often because de-digivolve is, like I said, just that strong. And having the consistency on the abilities just means that we're going to have access at it more often. I'm going to be running a little bit of a flashback from the past, and that's going to be 4 copies of the BT4 Gogmamon. So the BT4 Gogmamon has the Digiburst ability, which is really synergistic for how this deck works because a lot of our abilities are triggering from our inheritables when they're going to be removed, and Digiburst is a way to proactively remove them. And the reward for utilizing Gogmamon's Digiburst ability, because 1, it's cheap, so we could get rid of an individual source at a time, we're going to be rewarded each time we do that with a plus 2000 DP boost until the end of the opponent's next turn. So it is a sticky DP boost, which helps our Digimon be more aggressive when we're trying to go for that OTK. Then its inheritable ability is just a simple plus 1000 DP boost during all turns. And then when it comes to the level 6 lineup, I'm just running the 4 copies of Pyramidimon because this is our win condition card. If you wanted to, you could think about running a supporting level 6 like an Ace or another rock or mineral traded Digimon, but because the deck is an OTK deck and it's solely focused on, OTKing, I didn't really see a reason for any other supporting megas, especially since the supporting mega can't actually help us with our OTKs. So that's why I'm just sticking to running Pyramidimon. And he's actually a really fantastic card when he gets going because he does have that Fragment 3 ability, as we just saw, having some nice native built-in protections at the cost of our inheritable abilities, which we don't care as much because we have ways to recycle them, and we're already going to be trying to trash them anyway, because his when digivolving and when attacking ability, which is not limited to once per turn, is what's going to be causing us to try to actually win the game. Because by trashing any 3 Digivolution sources with a rock or mineral in its traits from our Digimon, this Digimon can unsuspend and gain security attack +1 until the end of the turn. So the idea is we're going to swing with our Pyramidi, use this ability to trash 3 sources, unsuspend, gain a security attack plus, swing again with that extra damage, and then basically try to do it all over again with each consecutive attack. But the fact that he does get consecutive attacks is partially what's allowing us to be able to OTK to begin with. But just in case we didn't close out the game utilizing Pyramidimon, he does have a pretty decent ability that triggers at the end of our turn, once per turn, where we get to place up to 3 rocker mineral traded Digimon from our trash to the bottom of his Digivolution source, so that way we could reload him with the specific abilities that we want or need, and the fact that we're reloading him means that the following turn, if they're unable to get rid of him, we could use the Fragment ability to protect him during the opponent's turn, or we could just use those sources we put in to try to win the game the following turn with. And then when it comes to the Tamer lineup, I'm just going to be running an all-close lineup. So I'm going to be running a total of 6 close. You could kind of split them in ratio-wise on however way you want. I just found that 6 close was pretty good. And these are just the ratios that I personally settled on. So the 2 copies of the EX08 close I'm running because she's a little bit more expensive and she is the memory setting tamer. So memory setting tamers usually have diminishing returns, just because you only need 1 to be able to set yourself to 3 memory to make your plays possible. Then she also has a really good secondary ability, where it's not necessarily bad to have multiple of this close out on the field, because when we're digivolving into a rocker mineral traded Digimon, we get a suspender to add up to 2 rocker mineral traded cards from our trash to the bottom Digivolution source of that Digimon. So it's a really good way to be able to add lots of extra sources into our Digimon to make Pyramidimon that much more efficient at closing out the game with. Then I'm going to be running 4 copies of the promo close, because the promo close is a little bit more efficient. So if we do have to hard play Tamer, it just feels better paying 3 to play her versus 4 to play the other one. The promo close allows us at the start of our main phase, if the opponent has a Digimon, to gain 1 memory. So the more of this close we have on the field, the more memory that we're going to be gaining, especially if we're already going to be starting at 3, thanks to the EX08 close. But regardless on how much memory we're actually going to be gaining, the secondary ability is the primary reason why I really like this close a lot, is because during all turns, when an effect trashes a Digivolution source from any of our rock or mineral traded Digimon, we get to suspend this tamer to place a rock or mineral traded Digimon from our trash to the bottom of any of our Digimon's Digivolution source. So that way, if we don't necessarily have all of the sources in our trash, then we could at least reuse the ones that we just used off of our Digimon. So it's kind of just a trade-off on how we're going to be adding sources back into our Digimon, but the fact that both close add sources and add sources differently is really, really nice. And then when it comes to the option lineup, I'm just going to be running probably one of the most boring option lineups that I could possibly make, because this is just the best option lineup that I can currently think of for the majority of any stack-based deck. which is going to be 4 copies of the given training card, which is just for more consistency and cheaper evolutions. Then I'm going to be running 2 copies of the colored memory boost, again for more added consistency and that extra memory gain so we can make more plays possible. And then 2 copies of the colored based scramble, because again, more cost reduction is insane, on top of being able to rig the top of our deck with whatever card we need. And if we don't have a Digimon on our fields, then we actually can play a 2000 DP or less Digimon from our trash for free, which is really nice at being able to have a body. And then the last option of the deck is going to be probably the spicy tech card, which I really wouldn't define as super spicy because I'm just choosing to use 2 copies of Breath of the Gods for that added protection. So we already know that Fragment protects our Digimon from being deleted, and Breath of the God not only gives our Digimon reboot, but it can't have its DP be reduced, and it can't be returned to our hand or deck until the end of the opponent's turn, making it so it's really hard for the opponent to deal with our Digimon, while the security ability also could just turn off the opponent's aggression overall. But for the most part, this is just my interpretation of the deck, and I do know that there's a lot of other different ways to be able to build the deck based on the cards that you want to prioritize and have access to, your own personal play preferences, and where you think the meta is going to go and how this deck can be able to handle the meta. But there are just other useful cards, not only just in Archetype, but out of Archetype that we could think about utilizing. Another example of something unique you could do is because of how Pyramidimon's ability works, you could even think about adding in a level 7 like Omnimon Alter B and try to take advantage of that type of an ability. So there is a decent amount of flexibility and variety that you could play depending on what you actually want to try to build. And then as far as some potential future upgrades, right now we don't know of any, but given the fact that the Liberator webcomic is still going, it's most likely this deck is going to be getting more support later down the road. We don't know when, and we don't know what that's actually going to look like, but we could probably predict there is going to be some. But for the time being, any good generic black card that comes out is something that we could think about utilizing to upgrade and enhance the deck, on top of any other good generic Liberator, Rock, or Mineral traded cards. But for the most part, that's all I really have for this video. Feel free to tell me your thoughts about the deck down in the comments below. And while you're down there, you might as well hit that like and subscribe button if you like this type of content. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date when my videos go live next. And with that, I hope to see everyone in the next video.